The two essential fatty acids are called omega-3 and omega-6. They happen to be the most sensitive of all of our essential nutrients. They're easily damaged by light, by oxygen, and by heat. So these are the essential nutrients, the essential building blocks that need the most care to be protected from light, oxygen, and heat. But in fact, we give them the least care because we throw them in the frying pan and turn them into smoke. And you know, when you turn oil into smoke, you're changing the chemistry. So you're changing these essential nutrients into something that is actually toxic. Because smoke is toxic. When you breathe in smoke, you increase the risk of lung cancer, for instance.
Welcome to Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck, talking wellness and weight loss for real life. We're here to clear up the myths, misinformation, bad science, and marketing to teach you how to eat and how to cheat. Are you ready? I'm having salad with a side of fries. Hey friend, welcome back to another episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck. Of course, I'm always here with you every week. And one premise of the show is to help everyone cut through the noise in the food industry and with diet and nutrition to truly understand wellness and decipher between facts and marketing. Today's episode is spot on to that mission. So let me introduce you to our featured guest. And there are not many people for whom I could use the word legendary, but here it's fitting. He's the co-founder of Udo's Choice line, which can be found in Whole Foods and other health food stores worldwide. He designed the machinery for making oils with health in mind and pioneered flax oil, now a billion-dollar industry. But he walked a difficult path to become the man he is today. Being a child of war, his life began with intense struggle. As an adult, he got pesticide poisoning, leaving doctors at a loss regarding treatment. Taking his health into his own hands led him here. Today, he's an acclaimed speaker and author of many books, including the best-selling Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill, which has sold over 250,000 copies. He teaches at events hosted by Tony Robbins and Deepak Chopra, has keynoted International Brain Health Conference, and has traveled to over 30 countries to conduct thousands of live presentations, media interviews, staff trainings, impacting more than 25 million lives with his message on oils, health, peace, nature, and human nature. Now you are counted in that over 25 million lives impacted. Give it up for Udo Erasmus. Udo, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Maybe with this, it'll be 26 million.
Right. So last we spoke was a few months ago. Tell me, what's good and new?
Oh my God, I can't remember what was happening then, so I don't know what's changed. But the sun is shining and it's getting a little bit warmer. And, life is good. Life is good.
It is indeed.
We had
awesome.
lots of crazy things going on in the world. But inside of every human being is something so incredibly awesome and magnificent that if it's really crazy outside, just close your eyes and close your ears and hang out inside. If you can't go outside, go inside.
I love it.
Inside is where the treasure is. It's called your life.
Ooh, that's good. Quotable already, and we've barely gotten started. So we'll start with your story.
That might be the only one.
Oh, I don't think so. All right. So I want to start with your story, but so that I don't have to interrupt you too many times at least, right? Let's tell our members before we get started, tell our members what they're getting this week. So members, your recipe is for chickpea, spinach, and quinoa patties. They're kind of like a baked falafel, right? Fitting for our conversation about cooking with oils today. We'll get there, I promise. And I'm sending you an article from our friends at Levels called How the Mind Controls Metabolism. So it's all about the interaction between our thoughts and our cellular function. I think you're really going to like it. So if this article is intriguing or the recipe sounds delicious, you're right. To get these delivered to your inbox on Friday, be sure you're a member. Go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries. For $10 a month, you get weekly recipes, a monthly article or tool like today, extra discounts from me and our partners, plus access to live Q&A sessions. A total deal When you take advantage of the full offerings, you're saving far more than that $10 cost. Seriously, a no-brainer way to show yourself that your health is a priority. Plus, your membership supports this podcast, this community, so we can continue bringing you new episodes and experts every week because I love doing it. So help us out, right? Remember, go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries, or just click the link in the show notes. You don't have to remember it. From there, it's about 3 clicks, a little typing, and you'll be all set. You'll get this week's recipe for the chickpea, spinach, and quinoa patties, plus the article, How the Mind Controls Metabolism. All right, Udo, okay. I mentioned it a little bit in introducing you, but walk us through your life from starting as, a refugee kid to your pesticide poisoning and then to today.
Okay, so I was born during the Second World War in what is now Poland, was then Germany. My parents were from Latvia, Estonia. They left when the communists started taking over Latvia because they loved the Russians. They hated communism because everything got taken over by the state, and it was a state dictatorship. And so they loved the Russians, but they hated communism because communism took everything away from everybody, made it state-owned, so nobody owned anything. And it was a dictatorship. And so you had no freedom and you had nothing. So they had German, Swedish backgrounds. They ended up in a part of Poland that it was then part of Germany. And then at the end of the war, all the men were either in war or in prisoner of war camps or dead. And the women were mostly alone with children. They started fleeing out of Poland westward with the communists chasing them in tanks and trucks on dirt road in horse-drawn hay wagons, with nothing but the clothes on their back. And the Allies, the good guys, were using the refugees as target practice, shooting at them from planes. So there was no military presence on those roads. These were just refugees with young kids, mostly women and children, trying to get the hell out and getting crossfire, chased by the commies and shot at by the Allies. And I just remember the feeling not safe and the chaos and the anxiety and the fear and hunger because, when you're fleeing on a horse-drawn hay wagon on a dirt road, there's not a lot of food there, right?
Right.
So we got out. We eventually got out. I got left behind. They got out. My mother's sister came back and hauled us out of an orphanage or off a train that was going somewhere. And so we eventually got reunited. But the experience was pretty intense, and it's kind of rubbed my nose very early in the fact of what happens when we don't cultivate civility and peace and cooperation and care when we have the luxury to do that. And we kind of are drifting towards the same kind of problems, war and destruction, because we're not doing our homework. We're not doing what we need to do to stand for peace, to stand for care, to stand for each other, to stand for love, and to stand for truth. Right? So anyway, we got out, and then we left Europe when I was 10, went to Canada, lived in the northern woods. It was a lot like Latvia, so my father liked the idea of going to Canada and bought 112 acres of bushland for $960, and we cleared 40 acres by hand and by horse. And, we lived no electricity, no running water, no indoor toilet. At 40 below, we're using an outhouse. Our toilet paper was a catalog of like a clothing catalog with, slight glossy paper. Yeah. So anyway, maybe that's too much detail, but it was very rustic.
Paint the picture.
Yeah, it was very rustic. And then I came to Vancouver to go to university, and I went into science and biological sciences and psychology, took a year of medicine, and then biochemistry and genetics, because I wanted to understand how things work and how creatures work and how thinking works. Because when I was 6 years old, I heard people argue, and it always bothered me. It always made me nervous when people argued. And they argued about stupid things, I thought, trivial things. And I said, man, there has to be a way that people can live in harmony. And this little cocky voice of a 6-year-old, and I'm going to find out how, not knowing how incredibly complicated everything is. But I actually think I have found how that is. That doesn't mean I can convince anybody, but at least I know where it is for me. So and then I got married after I left university. I got married, and my marriage broke up, and I was very upset, and I took a job as a pesticide sprayer. I had a license to do that from a gardening job previously, but I wanted to kill something, and pesticides are used to kill things. So I sprayed pesticides very carelessly for 3 years, and then I got poisoned by the pesticides I sprayed. It's a predictable outcome, right? Even though when people ask me, aren't you worried you're going to get poisoned by being careless? I said, nah, I'm immune. And then I got poisoned by pesticides. So sometimes people say that men, until they have their first serious personal disaster, are poisoned by their own testosterone.
Right.
That would have been definitely my case. And then the doctors couldn't help me. So I used my background to get into nutrition, knowing that the body's made out of water, air, and food. And the idea was that if I raised my standard for water, air, and food, then I knew within 1 year, about 98% of the molecules of the atoms in the body are removed and replaced. So that means in 1 year, I could have rebuilt my body to a higher standard. 98% of the body. And that's why healing is possible, because the body's always turning over. And so I thought, well, I have no other way to deal with it. The doctors don't have anything for pesticide poisoning. So let me raise my standard, because it's been pretty low for 3 years, right? I've been sloppy and careless. And so I raised the standard. And then I learned what I learned from looking in the research journals about health and nutrition, disease and nutrition, got me focused on fats, because it was the most confusing area and turns out to be the most important and most neglected area in health. And so then I decided that we ought to be making oils with health in mind, because they were being made with shelf life in mind, and developed a method for doing that. And then the omega-3s were established as essential. And the research said 99% of the population doesn't get enough for optimum health. And then something in my head went off like a firecracker, because I thought, oh my God, if we could make oils with health in mind, and we could bring the missing omega-3s back into people's diets, we could help almost everybody. And that just so turned me on. It was like, oh my God, I have finally found something worth doing, and then the enthusiasm I developed for this noble cause, seemed noble to me, dragged me through all my fear and my shyness and my unwillingness to get in front of people. I literally, when I was a kid, if I had to do a presentation in front of class, I would find a reason not to go to school that day. That's how shy I was. But then this enthusiasm dragged me through all that shyness. And now, if I know what I'm talking about, I'll be on stage, no problem. I don't have to be on stage, but I have no fear of stage, provided I'm bringing something that has value and I know what I'm talking about.
I love it. That's why you're here.
And here we are.
I want to go back, because I think many people would be curious. What were the symptoms you presented with the pesticide poisoning?
Oh, I got nausea, dizziness, cramps, low energy. That was the most persistent symptoms that lasted for about 2 or 3 years. And if I turned my head, it felt like my head turned, but my brain didn't. Now, that's obviously that doesn't happen. When your head turns, your brain turns. But that's what it felt like. So I don't know what that was, but it was a very confusing symptom. So those were my particular symptoms from pesticide poisoning. You always expect that if you get poisoned by pesticides, that you're going to go below energy, because pesticides poison creatures in 2 ways. They either interfere with breathing or they interfere with energy production. And those two are related. And all your energy, that is the sunshine, that is your life, is released by oxidation, which requires breathing, and by your mitochondria, which break down molecules to release the solar energy stored in the bonds between atoms and molecules. And that's the energy that you live on, that's stored on ATP, that basically runs you, and that is your essential being. Now, there's a lot of things in what I just said.
Right. So I'm gonna refocus us on the fats thing
Yeah, that's
to
perfect.
start.
Yeah.
So I talk about it all the time, right? Essential and what that means. I'd love to hear you talk about it because you mentioned omega-3s being essential fatty acids.
Yeah.
So what that means, why understanding them is so important for our everyday lives.
Okay. It's true. Omega-3s are essential and omega-6s are also essential. But an essential, when it's applied to nutrition, was defined by the researchers who came up with that designation as a nutrient that you have to live and be healthy. So it's a required building block, essential building block. You can't make it in your body from anything else. And therefore, you have to bring it in from outside. That's number one part.
Yes.
Number two is if you don't get enough, you cannot stay healthy. Your health will then deteriorate. You will get deficiency symptoms because you're not getting enough. Those symptoms are degenerative in nature and look like our degenerative diseases. And the symptoms will get worse with time. And if you don't get enough long enough, you die. So this is really important stuff. These are the key building blocks: 18 minerals, 13 vitamins, 9 essential amino acids from protein, and the 2 essential fatty acids fit that definition. Now, the third part of the definition is if you're deteriorating because you're not getting enough of something, a nutrient that's essential, but you bring back enough of it before you die, then all the problems that come from not getting enough are reversed, because life knows how to make a body that works, provided we take responsibility right here at our mouth, where things go into our mouth, to make sure that we bring in optimum amounts of all of the essential building blocks, make sure they land in our body so that life can do its job. So this is what essential means. And omega-3 and 6 are essential. Omega-6 was known to be essential in 1929. And omega-3 was established as essential in 1981, which was the year after I got poisoned and already had my head buried in the journals. So I got there. Right. The timing was perfect for doing what I ended up doing.
Yeah. And so let's talk about that, because you talked about, the responsibility comes at what we put in our mouths.
Yeah.
And especially when it applies to fats and omegas. And you mentioned before the processing and the cooking of foods, right, changes the nutrients. So what does everybody really need to understand about oils and processing of oils?
Okay, so the 2 essential fatty acids that fit that definition that I just gave for minerals, vitamins, amino acids, and essential fatty acids are called omega-3 and omega-6. They happen to be the most sensitive of all of our essential nutrients. They're easily damaged by light, by oxygen, and by heat. So these are the essential nutrients, the essential building blocks that need the most care to be protected from light, oxygen, and heat. But in fact, we give them the least care because we throw them in the frying pan and turn them into smoke. And when you turn oil into smoke, you're changing the chemistry. So you're changing these essential nutrients into something that is actually toxic, because smoke is toxic. When you breathe in smoke, you increase the risk of lung cancer, for instance. And cooks who spend 8 hours a day in front of frying pans, because all the cooks cook with oil, right? They have 4 times the rate of lung cancer than ordinary people who maybe spend 2 hours a day in front of their frying pan in their kitchen, frying oils and frying foods in oils, right? So these are the most sensitive nutrients. They need the most care. They get the least care. Damaged by light, oxygen, heat. Omega-3 is essential. Every cell requires both omega-3 and omega-6. 99% of the population doesn't get enough omega-3 for optimum health. And most everybody gets enough omega-6, but in a form that is partially damaged by the processing as well as by the frying and the food preparation. And so the thought occurred to me is we should be making oils with health in mind. That means we need to build a really tight system where through the entire process of turning oils that are in seeds and nuts into oils in bottles, no light, no oxygen, no high heat should get to these oils. And then they should be in glass because plastic leaches into oil, and plastic is a problem when it gets into the body. And then we put a box around the glass bottle to shut out all the light. And then we said we're going to refrigerate these oils because the cooler you keep the temperature, the longer they retain their health benefits and their freshness. And so we made all these decisions about how you treat a baby, keep it warm and keep the diapers changed. And, so we were basically raising a baby called essential fatty acids or oils made with health in mind. And I didn't have any business background. I only had the enthusiasm and the biological sciences background. So I understood the molecules, but I didn't understand business. But we made business decisions right and left. And we went out and told the story, and we did the packaging, and we created the factory. I grew up on that farm without electricity. You get pretty good at tinkering with things. When you need to make something, you figure it out. What are the issues? How do we make it? What does it need to do? What do we want as an end product? And then from knowing what that is, you then create whatever it is that you need to get that done. So that's basically what we did. And so we ended up making oils with health in mind. Now, let me give you one more piece of information that was shocking to me. When oils are made by industry, so we're talking about just about all of the colorless, odorless, tasteless oils in the plastic bottles on the shelf, the exception would be extra virgin olive oil. It's made by a different method. But all of those oils are made for shelf life because the industry said, if you got a 3-year shelf life for an oil, then you can make it wherever you are. Where are you?
New York City.
Okay, so you're in New York City. So you could make that oil in New York City, and you could sell it to me in Vancouver, and to somebody in Berlin, and to somebody in Johannesburg, and maybe you could even get it to Tokyo, and Buenos Aires. So fundamentally, if you have 3-year shelf life, you could pretty much make it in New York City and sell it around the globe. So you have a potentially very large market. And if you want to have oil in every household, because pretty much there's oil in every household, so you have a huge market. And of course, if you could get the government to mandate it as a requirement in every household, that would be nice, but they never got the mandate. And I never got the mandate with oils made with health in mind either.
Right. So this talks to us about eating our nuts, right? And purchasing quality oil.
Yeah, let me
understanding. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me go back because I didn't finish the sentence. So the idea is it's made with shelf life in mind. And in order to make it with shelf life in mind, it has to be processed in a certain way. They would do that with sodium hydroxide, which is a very corrosive base, to remove some things that shorten the shelf life. Then they treat it with phosphoric acid, which is a very corrosive acid, to remove some other things. Then they bleach the oil because the color in the oil, the color bodies in the oil, absorb light, and then the light damages the oil. So they get rid of those with bleaching clays, but now the oil goes rancid and it smells bad. And now to get rid of the rancid smell, they have to heat the oil to frying temperature in a process called deodorization or molecular distillation or wiped film evaporation to get rid of the rancidity. And then you end up with a colorless, odorless, tasteless oil, like all of those oils are. But the problem created by it, and the industry doesn't talk about it, and the researchers who use those oils for research don't talk about it, 0.5 to 1% of the molecules of the oil are damaged by that processing. And so I called them in Champaign, Illinois. That's where the American Oil Chemists Society, the umbrella organization for the oil producers, hangs out. Said, I want to talk to a researcher. They gave me a researcher. And I said to him, when you know that your processing does damage to the oils, why do you do that? Because it damages molecules. Why would you want to damage molecules? That's not going to be good for health if you change molecules from natural to unnatural. He said,
if only health was their objective.
Well, health was not their objective, yeah. But he didn't say that. Oh, yeah, we don't care about health. He didn't say that. You can't say that. He'd lose his job. No, he said one of the reasons we do that is because we can get rid of half of the pesticides in the oil. And I had a bird. So I hadn't even thought of that there's pesticides in oils. Oh, my God. The other half stays in. That was my thought. And I'd been poisoned by pesticides, so I was a little sensitive about that particular point, right?
For sure.
And so I said to him, well, why don't you start with organically grown seeds that have no pesticides on them? And I guess he had never thought about it. It was this long silence at the other end of the phone. So I waited. And then he got back to me. He was angry. He said, I don't know what your problem is. The oil is 99% good. It's only 1% damaged. And if you got 99% on your exam, you'd be damn happy, wouldn't you? Well, I used to get 100% on the topics that I was really interested in. So I was not impressed with 99 like he was. And I got 99.5% on my pesticide sprayers exam. So 99%. But then I thought, well, maybe I'm overreacting. Yeah, it's only 1%, 99% good, 1% bad. So we have a saying, when in doubt, do the math. So I did the math. And the math goes like this. How many molecules are there in a tablespoon of oil? And then if it's 1% damaged, how many damaged molecules will you find in that tablespoon of oil? And I ask this when I do lectures, when I do talks. I ask people, and they don't know, of course, because they've never done that math. But so it's like, guess, what do you think? What do you think? The oil is 1% damaged. How many damaged molecules do you think you're going to have in that tablespoon?
More than billions, right?
Well, give me a number.
I don't even know. Let's call it a few billion.
Okay, how many billion?
3.
Okay, 3 billion. Okay, so 3 billion. So you go from 3 billion to 3 trillion to 3 quadrillion to 3 quintillion. And then you got to add another 0 and put a 2 in front of the number. So what do you have? 1,000, 1,000,000, 1,000,000,000. You have 20 billion. So your estimate of how many damaged molecules are in that oil is 20 billion times too low. So in other words, the oil is 20 billion times more damaged than you think. And so then I say to people, look, you're going to the airport, you're at the airport, you're going to get on the plane, you're going to fly home for the holidays. And somebody who always tells the truth tells you, oh, by the way, did you know that your chance of crashing and dying in that flight home is 20 billion times higher than you thought it was? Would you get on the plane?
Right.
And I do that not because I'm trying to scare people about flying. I'm doing that because what you're saying and what people do with their numbers, you are underestimating the damage that this oil will do to your body by 20 billion times. Is that enough to make you think seriously about making an oil change to oils made with health in mind?
Well put.
And then people say, oh my God, I had no idea. Yeah, because, molecules are really, 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 really small, right?
Right.
So you don't think there's that many in a tablespoon. But it's more than 1 million damaged molecules for every one of your body's 60 trillion cells in just 1 tablespoon. And most people use 2 to 4 tablespoons a day, and they fry them on top of that. So you have to multiply that number by another 10, 20, 30 times maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the damage you're doing every time you take a tablespoon of oil or anytime you fry your food to make French fries that you eat with your salad.
Right. Well, so that brings us exactly to what I was going to say next, which is, we talked about sort of buying it, right? And then we talk about using it and frying. People, I think for a long time now, have associated frying foods as not our healthiest option, but using oil to cook in general may not be. Talk to us about how we use our oils. I get it. Right, salad with a side of fries,
so
but
How old are you?
38.
38. Okay. I'm going to be 80 this year. So I'm twice your age. When I was a kid, so that'd be like in the 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe 50s, 60s for sure. When people talked about cooking always meant the use of hot water to prepare food. So you're boiling, steaming, pressure cooking, was always with water. Now, what you just told me about cooking in oil, that's a new way to use the word cooking that was driven by the oil industry's interest in selling oil because they're using water and we make no money on water, right?
Yep.
So said, if we can get them to use oil for cooking instead of water, then imagine how much more oil we could sell. And you can almost imagine the boardroom meeting. This is not a health conversation. This is a how much money, how big is the market, what do we need to say in order to convince people to use oils in food preparation. Even olive oil was not traditionally used for frying. What they did is they cooked their vegetables in water, then they dumped the water, or sometimes they drank it because there's minerals in that water. And then they added extra virgin olive oil for flavor because oils enhance flavors.
Yep.
And they improve the absorption of oil-soluble nutrients in the foods we eat. So they do two things that are really cool. But they added it after the food came off the fire, off the heat.
Just had this conversation with clients last night. So yeah, I love that we're talking about this.
And so the idea is, if you're going to cook in water. Frying in oil is the dumbest thing we've ever invented to do in terms of health, because oils are the most sensitive nutrients. You put them in the frying pan. If you burn the oils, you increase inflammation and cancer risk, no matter what oil you use. But when you turn it into smoke, you're creating something carcinogenic, okay? And if you fry starches, and they turn brown at the outside or black on the outside, well, the brown and black stuff is also carcinogenic and inflammation producing. And if you fry protein, like a steak, the burnt part of the steak also increases risk of cancer and inflammation. So starch, protein, and oils, independent of each other, when overheated, increase risk of inflammation and increased risk of cancer. Now, why would you want to do that to yourself? From a health perspective, if health is about vitality and energy and feeling good, and you know how to do that, it's not very hard when you set the standard. I'm going to have the best life. I'm going to have the life of you pick it. The happiest person on the planet, the wisest person on the planet, the most loving person on the planet. I'm going to be that person. If you set that standard, you're going to make a lot of things disappear out of your life that are not up to that standard. And then every time you aim for the standard and then you do something stupid, and then you fall down, and then you learn something, but never give up on the standard, right? And eventually you will be the happiest, the most peaceful, the most loving. You'll be like the great masters that everybody adores. Right?
Excellent.
Because that's what they did. They set a high standard and they lived into that standard because the possibility of that exists in every human being. Right? When it comes to oils, what happened to me, I say to people, listen, get your frying pan. It's doing damage to you. You deserve a better life than that. Turn that stupid thing upside down, hit yourself on the head with it really hard so it's associated with pain, and then put it in the garbage can and never use it again. And then cook. Now, how to use oils? You cook in water
after.
If you're going to cook, and you add it after the food comes off the heat.
Excellent.
If the oil is made with health in mind, you have to do it, because if you throw oil made with health in mind in the frying pan, then you're basically wasting all the time we took and all the care we took to make an oil that supports your health, right?
Yeah. So this actually, talking about sort of what the food industry did and, realizing what we do to our foods too, is sort of a perfect transition to what I want to talk about next. But quick pause for a message from our partner for this episode, Snap Cleaning Products. Make household and industrial cleaning a snap with their eco-friendly, economical, multi-purpose Snap products. Snap's concentrated formulas are designed to perform light to industrial strength jobs all in one bottle. With the cleaning power of a variety of cleaners, but all in one, or all in a couple, I should say, they save you time, money, and valuable storage space. Snap products are developed with the environment in mind, using plant-based ingredients that are biodegradable, phosphate-free, non-toxic, and bottled and recyclable containers. So today we're sort of talking about fats, plants, us, right? How all of these things around us and what we put into ourselves can be really important. So I love the Snap dishwashing liquid. So you put a drop in a pan or in the sink and fill it with water. Let the dishes sit for a couple minutes. So maybe while you tidy up the kitchen or maybe even while you eat, you go back to the pan and it just wipes clean. So no need for another workout to do the dishes or harsh bristles that can damage your cookware. And it's gentle enough to use on fine china. Best part, you use like a drop or two at a time, and a 32-ounce bottle costs you $12.50. Actually, less than that, because as a Salad with a Side of Fries listener, you get 10% off and free shipping. I should also mention there's dishwashing crystals too for your dishwasher, but I don't know. I always clean things before I put it in the dishwasher. Maybe I'm crazy. So text the word CLEAN, CLEAN, to 844-947-4846. You'll receive the link and coupon code right to your phone. Again, simply text the word CLEAN to 844-947-4846 to try Snap, in particular, the dishwashing liquid, for 10% off plus free shipping. This is a toll-free number. Standard text and data rates may apply. Okay, Udo. So we talked about the fats.
Yeah.
And from all of the research that you've done on biology and psychology and everything the food industry is hiding, right? What are some of the things that we all really need to understand, even outside of the fats?
Okay. Well, when it comes to the oil industry, the thing that's always been hidden is that these oils that are 0.5 to 1% damaged with molecules, many of which are toxic, are used to do research. But nobody ever says, oh, by the way, we need to acknowledge how much toxicity is in the oil. And then they get negative results with like omega-6s. But omega-6s are essential for the health of every cell. But damaged omega-6s do damage to every cell. And then they get negative results and they blame the results on the omega-6s rather than the damage done to them by the processing. And nobody in the industry, because they get their grants from the industry.
Right. So
they don't talk about it. And how I came upon it was they said omega-6s are essential. And we said what that means. Got to have it, can't make it. Got to get it from food. If you don't get enough long enough, you die. If you bring it back before you die, everything that goes awry from not getting enough is reversed. And then there's a next study done by somebody else that says omega-6s give you cancer and kill you.
Right.
And I'm going in my head, I'm taking it all in. I'm trying to learn all this stuff, right? And I'm taking it and I'm going, what? It's essential for health and it gives you cancer and kills you. How can that be possible? Right?
Right.
And it drove me nuts. It's like, and these are people, they're doing research and I'm assuming they're honest, which is maybe not the best assumption to make because there's a lot of lying that goes on in science, especially these days. But I was, at that time, it wasn't as widespread. So
yeah, but truthfully, I think all of those same things, that same approach is happening all over.
Oh, sure. Lying is a time-tested way to get advantage without effort.
But the way we're talking about things as life-saving and deadly, right? And the nuances of these additional factors that are really playing into those conclusions that it's deadly.
And that are not being voiced, right? And so it was that conflict, and it drove me crazy because I was sick and I wanted to get healthy and I wanted to do something that's really done with health in mind. And it's that thing that drove me to look deeper into how oils are made and say, oh yeah, it's the processing that causes the problems. And most of the time when we talk about food-related illness, it's not the food, it's the processing that changes the food that is the big issue, whether it's frying or whether it's drying or, all the different things we do in processing. And oils being the most sensitive, we're going to get the most problems from the damage done. And if we do an oil change that the body needs, from damaged oils to healthy ones. And when we do that right, more health problems will improve from making that change than from anything else that we could do in nutrition. Because that's because they're so sensitive.
Excellent.
Because of and they are one of the three pillars of nutrition, oils, proteins, and carbs. So these are major nutrients and most sensitive nutrients that need the care. Yeah. So then what do? You either got to get oils made with health in mind, or you got to go back to the seeds and nuts, and beans, and foods, whole foods that contain those essential nutrients. Because nature never fries seeds and nuts.
Right. Right.
Only we do that.
We come in and like to mess things up.
Yeah, we're like the sorcerer's apprentice.
Right.
Think we're smarter than nature and then flood the basement.
So let's take this into the plants conversation, because you're also very big on digestion, right? As another neglected area of our health. And I'm a big fiber person. Plants, I think, in the conversation of food industry sort of perverting, nature, right? I think plants is now the latest place where we have a lot of things that are called plant-based that actually aren't made of plants. Yeah. But talk to us from your perspective, the importance of plants.
Okay, first of all, everything you eat is either made by plants or by something that is made from plants.
Yes.
So the animals you eat, like the cow you eat, is made out of grass, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so fundamentally, plants are the foundation of everything that's alive. In fact, if you think about how the planet developed, it's been around for 5.4 billion years. Animals did not begin to develop until about 2.5 billion years ago. So for 2.5 billion years, it was all plants. It was only plants. There were no animals. And the plants make everything animals need to exist. Whether we're talking air, or we're getting minerals out of the soil, or making vitamins, or making proteins, or making essential fatty acids. Plants do all of that. Like for us, omega-3 and 6 is essential by the definition. But to plants, omega-3 and 6 are not essential because they can make them from scratch. Out of carbon dioxide and water, basically, plants make essential fatty acids. So we depend on plants for our essential fatty acids. If you go right down to the basics, they don't come from animals. They first come from plants. The fish oils that are so highly touted, very damaged, pretty toxic, because the ocean is a sewer, because everything we dump on land ends up going downhill. And if it's fat soluble, it'll concentrate up the food chain. So when we get them from fish, they're pretty high. When we get them from seals, they're even higher. Whales, even higher, right? And on the bottom of the food chain in the ocean are plants. And plants actually make the essential fatty acids and the essential fatty acid derivatives that then other creatures eat, and then other creatures eat them, and other creatures eat them. So they concentrate up the food chain along with the toxins in the food chain. But then when we talk about plant-based, it has to be whole food plant-based.
Indeed.
Because white sugar is plant-based, and it's not as bad as damaged oils, but pretty close, right?
Right.
And margarine is made from plants. It's not a healthy plant product. And so there are lots of plant products that are not healthy because of the processing again. But if you eat plants the way nature makes them, and if you can eat them fresh, whole, raw, and organic, that's life's mandate for healthy eating for every creature that eats. But then if you cook it or fry it, you change it. If it's not organic, you got pesticides in it. If it's old, it loses some of its nutrients. So that's why fresh. And if it's not raw, you lose some of the nutrients. So fresh, whole, raw, organic, whole food, plant-based is the foundation. And if you look back in history, the healthiest people are mostly plant-based. In Africa, some of these people eat so many plants that they have more than 100, like 108 grams of fiber in their diet, and they don't get any colon cancer if they stay on their traditional diet, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's all plant-based because there's no fiber in animal products. And fiber is good for bowel regularity. It's good for digestion. It's good for slowing down the absorption of sugar from your intestinal tract. And it's the favorite food of the probiotics. The probiotics are present on raw foods. So a cow will get probiotics with every mouthful of grass. They start in its mouth and work their way through the entire digestive tract, regulating and keeping unfriendly bacteria in check. And then when it's raw, there are enzymes in raw foods that do about 60% of the digestion of the food for you. But when you cook the foods, you kill the probiotics and you destroy the enzymes. And then your body has to do more than twice as much work than what it was intended to have to do in eating raw foods. And raw food was nature standard. So that means if you cook your foods, you got to replace the probiotics that you killed, and you got to replace the enzymes you destroyed by the cooking process or by the processing process, right? Oil is the worst treated, and then digestion is next. And digestive enzymes, probiotics, and fiber being plant-based, so less animal product gets you more fiber. Those three are extremely important. And then bitter herbs are very good for liver and digestion function. And between those four, enzymes, probiotics, fiber, and bitters, you pretty much can make your digestive system, which is the hardest working system in your body, do its job effectively to, again, get you more energy and better health.
Awesome. Udo's equation for health. I love it.
There you go. Yeah.
All right.
Love life and eat fresh.
Indeed. I love that. All right. So it's time for our rapid fire off topic questions. You ready?
No, I'm not ready, but you can't be ready for rapid fire. But go ahead.
What's the best thing you've done for your health this week? What's the naughtiest thing you've done related to your health this week?
The naughtiest thing was I ate some sesame crackers somebody gave me, and they're quite sweet. And I'm not a sugar fan, but he gave them to me and I ate a bunch of them. Then he gave me a thing to take home and I actually threw them out. So I'm relatively disciplined because I really like my life, and I'm more sensitive at 79 than I was at 30. So I pay more attention because I love my life and I'm going to be around as long as I can. And I'm going to change this planet to what it could be as much as I can with the time that I have.
If you
so that was the naughtiest. What is the best thing?
Well, I feel like throwing them out was the best thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
No?
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
If you weren't a health, wellness, spiritual, and human nature educator, what would you do?
I'd become one. No, I am in love with the topic. You know, human nature is such an incredible topic. It is the most neglected topic because we keep looking away from ourselves instead of looking into ourselves. We are magnificent. We have so much peace and so much love and so much inspiration and so much joy and so much wisdom built into us. And then we go run around and ask everybody else how we should live our lives when the expert is our own life. And so to me, working that arena and being an influence in the direction of people getting fully present in their own nature and their surroundings and not tripping in their head about stupid things. You know, I can't think of a thing I would rather do with the time I have on this planet than to be fully present in mine and help as many people as I can to get fully present in theirs.
Love it. Favorite book on any topic other than your area of expertise?
Oh, boy. Oh, look at my bookshelf. I have so many books. I have so many books. I love wisdom. I love Rumi.
Okay.
Yeah, Rumi is one of my go-tos. I have never seen anything that Rumi has said that didn't make sense from the perspective that I'm talking about of living in love with life. And if it doesn't make sense, then it's because it's a bad translation.
Right.
So you get a good translation of Rumi. He is so wise. He has such depth of understanding from his own experience. And I love stories of people's experiences. You know, stupid experiences too, but all experiences.
We learn a lot.
Oh, you can learn so much. Yeah.
If you could cure one ailment, disease, or sickness, what would it be?
Lying.
If you were a superhero, what would be your superpower?
Truth, but truth experiential, not like accurate information, but experiential truth according to life, which is experiential, at least in its foundation.
Yes. What's your biggest pet peeve?
I think lying.
Yeah, I was going to guess.
Because to me, lying is a form of dictatorship. When you lie to people, you take away their choice. And whether we're lying in medicine or we're lying about drugs and their effects and their side effects, there's so much of that going on. Or we're lying about oils because we're trying to prop up the industry that pays our grants. Every time we do that, we hurt somebody, because you can't make good choices for quality of life when people give you wrong information. So it's a crime against humanity. Lying is a crime against humanity.
Finally, in your opinion, what's the next frontier in wellness?
Self-knowledge. Yeah, self-knowledge, self-presence.
Love it. Udo, thank you again for being here. Tell everybody how to connect with you, where to learn more, find your books, all that stuff.
For the products that I work with, Udo's Choice, udoschoice.com. And you can order the products there, but you can also get them in the natural food stores.
Perfect. So we'll put a link in the show notes.
Yeah, and then I have another one, udoerasmus.com or theudo.com. And that's more about education and the books. And then I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram and I have a YouTube channel. So I'm not hard to find.
We'll get you all the links.
If you know how to spell Udo Erasmus, I'm not hard to find.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you again. Just truly appreciate your passion and your energy and, your thoughtfulness.
Well, thank you. And if it wasn't for you, I'd be talking to myself in the bathroom mirror. Right? This information is useful. I'm proud of what I know and proud of how I presented. But if it wasn't for the amplifier,
thank you.
Yeah, it would be all knowledge in a box under my bed.
Right.
Right. So it's very important what you're doing. It's very, very cool what you're doing.
Thank you so much. Do you have another minute to hang out for our nutrition nugget?
Oh, sure.
Awesome. This week, we're talking about integrity. And now you might be thinking, what does that have to do with our food? Well, so interesting for today's conversation, sure, but hear me out on this. So I often hear people say, I know what to do, I just don't do it. Or recently I heard someone say, I can't do moderation. I could do nothing, but I can't do moderation. Or I don't know if I can do this. Right? And all of those have this foundation of self-doubt. A big piece of our growth in our wellness is also building belief in ourselves. And I think this belief in ourselves is a function of integrity. So if we think about integrity, integrity is about being a person of our word, a person who keeps their commitments. All too often, we'll keep the commitments we make to others more than we keep the commitments we make to ourselves. And so not keeping our commitment to ourselves is what breeds that doubt. So upholding our integrity with the things that we want to do for ourselves, for our health, maybe we're the only one who knows about it. And that allows us to know that we can do it, that we will do it when we stay committed to those commitments we make to ourselves. So I'm also a big personal development junkie. And in those worlds, oftentimes you'll hear it said, how we do anything is how we do everything. And that we actually aren't different in different areas of our lives. So let me ask you, right? How do you do things that are about your own health, that are about your wellness? So let's commit today to each other and to ourselves to operate with integrity, to do what we say we're going to do, to keep our commitments to ourselves, to eat quality nutrition, to move our masses, right? To sleep well, to manage our stress, to have energy and vitality each day. And if it helps, know that I believe you. I believe in you. I think you have it in you, and you just need to prove it to yourself because you are more than capable. So in the moments when you feel like, ugh, I don't feel like it, right? Ask yourself, do I have integrity with myself? Am I a person of my word? Then take the next step because you'll know exactly what it is. So that's my take on integrity when it comes to our wellness. Udo, thank you again for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Excellent. As always, everybody, I'm your host, Jenn Trepeck. Connect with me on Instagram at Jenn Trepeck. Actually, all social media, same handle, JENNTREPECK. Our website is A Salad with a Side of Fries. Wherever it's convenient for you, send us a message. I want to hear your takeaways, your ideas, your questions. This is also the easiest way to learn more about working with me. Of course, if you're not already a member, join our membership program. You'll go to glow.fm/salad with a side of fries, or there's a link in the show notes for you. Remember that this membership is supporting this podcast, this community, but of all, your health. Plus, this week, you're getting a recipe for the chickpea, spinach, and quinoa patties, and the article, How the Mind Controls Metabolism. So until next week, look at where you are now, look at where you want to be, take it one step at a time with commitment, determination, and knowledge. Well, friends, that's it for today's episode of Salad with a Side of Fries. Congratulations for making yourself and your health a priority. Thanks so much for joining us. Be sure to click subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. Share us with a friend, and we'll be back next week. Always remember, you deserve it, and you are worth it. Happy healthy.